Warning, this episode contains adult language and adult humor.
Since when have trumpet players ever been considered adults?
If you are easily offended by these types of conversations, consider switching to the oboe. Welcome to the Trumpet Gurus Hang podcast. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. My guest for this inaugural episode is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Wayne Bergeron. Wayne is currently one of the most sought-after musicians in the world. As a session musician, he's appeared on more recordings and soundtracks than I can even count. Wayne is also an in-demand soloist and clinician, and a damn funny guy. When Wayne is out on the road, he's sure to be at the center of every great hang, but this hang is coming directly to you. So pour yourself a big glass, pull up a chair, and let the hang begin. All right, welcome to this week's episode of the Trumpet Gurus Hang. And for our first official guest, I have the one and only world famous, universally famous Wayne Bergeron. Mr. Wayne, thanks for coming and hanging with me today.
Oh man, this is awesome. It's great to see you in the flesh, kind of.
Yeah, sort of.
It's great. It's the best of everything because I get to experience you without the smell.
Yeah, well, that's true
nice,
too.
You know?
Yeah. And in honor of you, Wayne, I have a glass of tequila that I am enjoying. So.
Oh man, you're just pissing me off now because I'm not drinking at the moment for just because some health issues that we've discussed, and I'm kind of cooling it.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking wine. Let's not lose our heads here.
Okay.
And I will raise a glass of my Don Julio 1912 the next time I see you.
Oh, well, thank you. This is for you, my friend. So anyway, let's just we're going to hop in and get into it because in a lot of ways, this podcast was inspired by you, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on as my first guest.
Awesome.
I guess it's because when I first met you, we kind of met. You were doing a workshop. You're doing a master class out in Pennsylvania, and we kind of got to talk afterwards after the master class. And then you're like, "Hey, man, we're going to lunch. You want to go have lunch?" And we just sat there and we just basically shot the shit for a long time, and it showed to me the power of the hang. And from that point on, we've maintained a friendship over the years, and it's great to be able to talk trumpet and talk shop. But what was most impressive to me was the ability to connect on that personal level. To be able to just to talk about whatever it is. And I think sometimes the trumpet players would get so caught up in the whenever you meet someone that you admire, that you want to know about how do you play so high? How do you do this? What mouthpiece do you use? And I think that it's more important to understand the person behind the horn. That's really going to give you the insight into, what's made them as successful as they've been. So, let's just dive into that, man. So,
Sure.
why do you do the shit you do?
Why do I do it?
What drives you?
Well, I think since I was a little kid when I started playing trumpet, as you know my story basically, but I had some natural ability, when I was very young, hitting high notes on the trumpet. And, I was kind of a little circus act as a little kid because I could play charges up an octave, in junior high school and
right.
And all that stuff. And my friends were kind of mesmerized by that and trying to do it. And I'm sure it sounded like somebody putting a cat in a blender, but I had this little thing, and it's what kept me interested in playing because I got attention for it. I was never very good at anything. I was a very uncoordinated kid. I was a geeky little kid, and I was just a little insecure in myself in a lot of ways. So this gave me confidence. It's the one thing that gave me confidence, and that's why I still play today. And if I wouldn't have had that ability, I started on the French horn, as you know, I did not have this ability, So I think that's what keeps me going. And as I look back over the years and think about how I came up the ranks, because people ask me these questions all the time, and I have a pretty good track of how I progressed through high school and the goods and the bads and the bad habits I developed from being a natural player. Yeah. If you don't have the proper guidance, it's really like, you're a martial arts expert as well, besides being a great trumpet player. So the proper guidance and all this stuff, I'm sure there's martial arts people that have some natural ability at this
Yeah.
and get certain things very quick, like whether
Right.
it's a kick or something, and they're really good at that, but then their form and everything else is messed up. So it makes other things, they develop bad habits, and it makes
Right.
other things difficult to accomplish. That's me in a nutshell. So I'm 62 years old now, and I'm still undoing bad habits. I've gotten a
Yeah.
lot better at it 'cause I can look back, you know. I can look back at when I was 30. You figure I'm 62, so when I was 30, I should have been a much stronger player than I am at 62. Let's face it.
Hmm.
But we've gotten pretty smart. We've learned a lot about trumpet playing over the last 40 years,
Yeah.
from what our predecessors, and even, the turn of the century, when we think about looking at the Clark book and all these books, these were all written in the early 1900s, or the late 1800s. And we're still looking at that formula, and which is great. There's a great foundation of stuff there. We've learned a lot since then, and players have gotten smarter, and we've picked up on that and added things from great gurus and teachers that have come along since then, like Bobby Shu and different people like that have showed us a new way.
Yeah.
Just like in martial arts, there's a new way.
Yeah.
And so I like to think I'm a much smarter player now, and I can look back and I can tell you one thing: a 62-year-old Wayne Bergeron can kick a 30-year-old Wayne Bergeron's ass all over the stage. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
strength-wise, endurance. I think I'm a much better trumpet player as well musically, but I'm just
right.
talking about the physical part of it. And
Hmm.
so that didn't used to be the case. If we'd been having this conversation 40 years ago, my chops would probably be shot.
Uh-huh.
And I'd be go, okay,
Right.
well, I can't play lead anymore. Lead trumpet players that do what we have to do now, we're burning out. And even strong lead trumpet players, like in Las Vegas when they had the production shows and thing, all these great lead trumpet players that came from there and were playing these shows because they were so demanding, ended up having all kinds of chop problems. Not all of them, but many of them. And they would come to Los Angeles and they'd study with you on Racer, whoever, like to get fixed,
Right.
you know,
Hmm.
because they were doing everything they've been taught, and there was not enough recovery time. So like sports or anything else, that recovery time is, if it's not there, you have to figure out a way to survive the next day without that recovery time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and I think if I've learned any great lessons over the years, it was to be a smarter player and a more efficient player.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the big thing. And I think it goes across the board that, so many things that we do, whether it's music, martial arts, whatever it is, so many of the paradigms or things that were set up centuries ago. And we accept that as being gospel.
Right.
And it's important because it lays a foundation. But as we begin to understand more about physiology, obviously, you understand more about the neuropsych side of things, how the brain actually functions, how to get peak performance. We can get by in our youth by just muscling through and using sheer talent. But there comes a point where that tipping point where what you had starts to decline naturally. So it's your ability to become more efficient, more focused, to feel that, for lack of a better word, the mind-body connection, where you're approaching things more from a mental perspective than just, let's push some air through the horn and pray to God it comes out.
Well, there's a lot of that is, even what we read in brass literature, they talk about air so much. They put so much emphasis on air, and and take a big breath, and there's lung developers, and there's all these things, and I'm not saying they don't have any relevance because, let's say if you've got a bigger tank of gas, you're likely to be more efficient, But that being said. Knock my headphones off. How much air can we put through this little hole?
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's not a tuba exactly.
Right.
So there's a lot of resistance we're pushing against. And, taking these giant breaths and over tanking and then going to play something and you hit that resistance point, and you go, whoop, and all the oxygen in your lungs is turning to poison.
Yeah.
Because you're compressing it, and that's when we get dizzy and get head rushes, and that's why that happens, So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't understand that. If we actually decompress, and I don't know, maybe this is true, in martial arts as well, but if we decompress, it feels good to take a big breath because we feel supported. We go, okay, man, I'm ready to go now. Well, what if you're going to play a note that's 3 beats long on the staff? you've created tension. You're going,
Right.
and so by going, play. So I always do that. Even if I'm going to hit a high A, I decompress. I go, and as soon as I start playing, I realize I have more than enough air to do this job,
Yeah.
without creating extra tension in the body. So that tension, the too much tension thing, you can hear it in the sound. So if you can alleviate that, and there's different ways to do it. This is just one little example. You'll notice the sound will sound freer and more operatic instead of like, a screechy, horrible sounding thing,
Like me.
No, come on, bro. I mean, one of the things I hate hearing the things I hate hearing about me is because I can play in the upper register, and I'm not the best high note trumpet player of all time by any means, or do I think I am? And I don't even like to call myself a high note trumpet player. I'm a lead trumpet player. And people ask me what I play, and I never stay aside. I go, I play the trumpet.
Yeah.
I try to play everything as I can, as well as I can play it. And, so when somebody labels me with he's a high note trumpet player, it's a kiss of death.
Yeah.
It's a kiss of death as far as working. If somebody says, oh man, Wayne Bergeron's a great high note player, immediately they go, that's all he does. Or if they say such as a great jazz player or a great classical player, it's the kiss of death because they've just put you in a category where you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And let's face it, I mean, I know many classical trumpet players that I work with here in town that are great, but they cross over like I cross over into their yard, and we have to do that to be effective musicians on a recording session. And I've been in situations where it's strictly classical players and on the wrong kind of music, and it's kind of like a movie with bad casting.
Yeah.
It's like putting Jerry Lewis in a love scene.
Lady.
Yeah, he's a great comedic actor with physical comedy, but he was I won't say he was a one-trick pony because he was very talented, but that was his thing. And it's kind of bad casting. So we all get cast incorrectly. I've been cast incorrectly before where I've been in trouble, but it made me learn and it made me go study, through my failures. When we have failure, we learn.
Oh, yeah.
If we don't address it, if we just go, oh, yeah, well, if you think you nailed it, I'm very aware of when it's not happening for me. And I know my strengths and my weaknesses very well, better than anybody. So I don't need anybody else to tell me what I can do well and what I can't, because I know.
Yeah.
So that's a kind of a key thing, is knowing where you're at in anything.
Yeah.
And getting your ego out of the way and accepting like, hey man, this needs work. And
Yeah.
every day you see all the stuff behind me here. I'm going at it every day,
Yeah.
trying to improve on something.
And that's one of the things that as I've been lucky enough to be able to hang with people like, you and Bobby and, John Faddis and, not just dropping names, but just, people that are considered some of the, the top trumpet players that we have around, Malcolm, other people like that. And the greatest ones are consistently learning. There's never that thing of like, well, I've got this thing 100% nailed down. There's always that, I've got something else to work on. And I think that sometimes people that they don't really get to know the person behind the horn, sometimes they think like, well, yeah, he's got it made. He doesn't have to work as hard as I have to work. So I think it's great to hear that, you're still grinding every day. So that's encouraging.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm in a fortunate position because because of where my career has headed me into the studio path. I literally, and I say this without any fear of contradiction, I sit down with some of the greatest musicians in the world on a regular basis.
Yeah.
These people that are behind the scenes, these violinists and these woodwind players, you might not even know their names, that have been doing this for their entire career and at this extremely high level. And, I admire it so much because I look at my woodwind colleagues over there, and I listen to this great bassoonist in town here, and I listen to them play. There's so many of them, and you hear how they play a solo the first time. And to me, it's always just inspiring. I mean, I always go over and I make sure on the break I compliment. They go, "Oh man, beautiful solo!" "Oh my God, your flute playing." And there's so many of them, and it's just it's really something else, So it rubs off, and it makes you a better musician. And we all, I think, feel that way, And my trumpet colleagues, that I get to sit next to are the younger ones and the older ones, even though I'm kind of becoming the older one now.
Yeah.
Because I look around now, and I used to always be the young person in the brass section.
Yeah.
When I first started on these dates, I was the young person, and they were going, "Who's this guy? Why is he here?" So I had to prove, but I had to prove myself. I had to be there, and I had to do a good job and be accepted, just like on any team.
Yeah.
You got to prove yourself. You don't come in and go, "Oh, I've made it."
Yeah.
They don't want you there. They can get you out of there.
Well, and that's a really good question, and I think it's something that people don't take into account. I just remember from a very young age being, told, your chops might get you the gig, but it's everything else that's going to keep it for you. So, I know there are a lot of super talented guys out there in LA, but not saying that you're not a talented guy, but what do you think separates you from some of the other players that's given you the longevity in your career?
I think it's my good hair.
Well, it's that.
I think they're jealous.
I know I am.
I got my shortcomings, but I got pretty good hair still. I don't dye my hair. Just so you know, my hair is wet right now because I took a shower, so I kind of I've got this real cream look right now. But it's kind of funny, because I'm 62 and I should have some gray hair. And it's weird that I don't. My dad had very little gray hair at 90, and so did my mom, and they both had all their hair. So I know this is talk is not about hair, but I just figured I have my shortcomings. I have good hair. We'll just leave it at that. So I'm sorry. What was the question again?
It's just like what are like for you? I know one of the things that everybody always says about you is like, Wayne is such a nice guy. Wayne's such a great guy. He's a fun guy. And so I know your personality has a lot to do with your ability to fit in with the situation. Not having the huge ego of I've always got to be the lead player. I know you do sessions where you're playing the third part or whatever. So for you, I mean, what would you think is kind of like that defining thing besides your playing that keeps you in the forefront of people's minds when they're looking for a trumpet player?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that question, but I think that obviously, being able to get along with your colleagues and have them know you respect them, and like I said, once again, I'm in this fortunate position where these players I'm working with are really great. So there's no way I can even approach this situation with an attitude. It's like that would be just ridiculous because I come into these situations, getting to first times I played with on my wall, you can't see, but on my wall over here I have like some pictures and some different things, and there's a picture over here in the corner that I'm very proud of, and it's me standing between Jerry Hay and Gary Grant, and it's from a Pussycat Dolls record, and I played first trumpet. It was the first time I played first trumpet for Jerry Hay. And if you think I'm going to come into that situation like I'm all that,
yeah,
I was as nervous as a hooker in church, man. So, but I got this opportunity, man, and they were really kind to me, and they joked with me, and they gave me shit, and they pushed me, and they made me play my best, and I learned from that, So when I try to make everybody around me feel comfortable, and I'm a funny guy, I like to be, me, I'm kind of a joker, and I'm a little bit of a comedian, and not everybody likes that. I'm a prankster, so on the session, some of my colleagues are a little more serious than I am, and a little more nervous about even very established ones, and their names will remain nameless, but a couple of them are retired now, but some of them are just very, not that they weren't funny, didn't have senses of humor, but when they were on the job, they were so nervous about us getting in trouble, isn't even as established as they were, where I like to keep things light and not have that uptight environment, because it's already uptight. When you walk into a scoring session for a big movie, with somebody like John Williams, let's say, it's a very serious thing. And he's a very nice guy, and he's very easygoing, but it's a very serious thing. When it hits 10 o'clock, that room is silent. It is silent.
Okay.
Phones are off. If a phone goes off, you're liable to get fired. It's uptight. Anything with the playing that's weird or anything, if somebody misses a note a couple of times, the contractor's liable to stand up from the desk and stare back at the brass section, like, what's going on back there? It's an uptight situation.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, because music is not supposed to be uptight. Now, I know we got a job to do here, but by things being a little looser, the players are actually going to play better. It's like there's two different kinds of conductors, and I'll use one name in the positive light, then I'll use maybe many others for the negative.
Okay.
I've recently got to work with Gustavo Dudamel on a project where he's conducting for a film that I'm not supposed to talk about because it's kind of a secret, but you already know what it is because we've talked about it. But and working with him and watching how he brought the best in everybody. I mean, just with his analogies of the way he would talk to the string section, and they would play it great the first time. And then he'd say, it needs to be this and this, and this is what's happening in this scene. And then they would play it, and it would be 25% better. And he did it with the brass section and with everybody,
right.
As opposed to another conductor that can get that same result by screaming and hollering and looking at you like, if they're going to get a result that's going to be a much more nervous result, but you're going to play better.
Yeah.
Because, but it's going to take years off your life. So the pressure of the studio thing varies from contractor to contractor, from composer to composer. So when I'm in the situation with my colleagues that I work with on, like if I'm playing first, especially because I can control the vibe a little bit more if I'm playing first trumpet.
Right.
So there's players I like to sit with more than others. And I don't mean that I don't like playing with any of them, but vibe wise,
yeah,
where it's a little more relaxed and I feel more comfortable and I play better. Mm-hmm. As opposed to feeling like somebody's gunning for me because I'm playing first trumpet and they feel like they should be playing first trumpet. And maybe that's true. Well, like I said, we're all kind of poorly cast sometimes, but we got to do the job.
Right.
We have to go in and you've been hired to do this job, go in and do it.
Yeah.
If I don't feel like I can do it, if I come into a situation and the person next to me is going to be able to do this way, way better, I'm likely to go to the contractor and say, hey, I'm going to be splitting these parts with such and such, with John Lewis or whoever, because a lot of this stuff is really geared to, they're stronger at this than I am. And we can just split the first trumpet money, or if you have it in your budget to pay us both principal pay, because we get more money for first trumpet. And so be it, but I'll gladly split the money. So I have no ego about that or anything. My job and our job is to get this done the best way it can be done. So I think with that attitude and trying to be nice and trying to keep it light and trying not to get in trouble, I mean, even with the contractors that are more uptight, I'm just a little quieter about my keeping everybody loose.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw the video of us throwing the piccolo trumpet and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was all at the end of a recording session with a contractor that doesn't like those kind of things going on, but he was cracking up.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, actually.
Yeah.
But, time to do the job, man, he takes care of business, So I understand both sides of the coin with that. So I think maybe part of that's why, composer, we have our composers we work for and our contractors use us, and they trust us.
Yeah.
There's a trust thing. That's why you see a lot of the same people. It's not that nobody else can play. There's other great trumpet players that maybe haven't gotten their shot, or maybe they have gotten a shot and they stepped on their unit and and you're not back. Or maybe they don't have these traits we're talking about that are needed. Mm-hmm. It could be many things. But I think that there's a trust thing that comes into play, and that's with anything. Your team, you trust your team. When new people come in onto the team, it'd be like a basketball team rotating every game. There's all these great players on the bench, but let's say, oh no, you five are going to start today. Yeah. And they're going to be great because they're pros, but that little magic thing that happens from people playing together is not going to be there. It's not going to quite be where the people that are your A players are doing it all the time. And then you can rotate players in and out of that. Then we all become part of a bigger team. And I think that's what happens in the studio business for sure. Because it's not always the exact same players. There's players coming in and I'm not always there, and Dan Finero might be there, or Dan Finero and I might both be there on a commercial date. Yeah. Which is a good combination to have us both there, and then have two crossover classical players there. Then that section can we can do anything. Yeah. Because we can all cross over. Even on the Incredibles 2, it was like that. It was Dan Finero and I, and there was a couple of players that came in and out. John Lewis did a session, and Rob Shear, young player here that I say young and he's 38, but great player. There he was on a couple of the dates. But it was generally the basic section was Dan and I, and then Marissa Benedict and Dave Washburn. And Dave Washburn plays with the LA Chamber Orchestra, and I worked at Disneyland with him. He's a marvelous player, one of the best piccolo trumpet players you will ever hear. He owns the Brandenburg. Everybody leases it from him. So, and I say that half joking.
Yeah.
And Marissa Benedict is this beautiful sound and a very dear friend of mine. She teaches at the University of Minnesota now. She's moved, actually. Plays in the Long Beach Symphony here. So we have these kind of four different players in many ways. But that section sounded really, really good.
Yeah.
You know, and those players, those classical players, cross over into my yard. And I can cross over into the yard. I played some of the classical stuff. Dave played some of the classical stuff. You know, Marissa, there was a couple little Harmon, like little jazzy things. She can play, I had to play them, you know.
Yeah.
And Dan, you know, Dan was my wingman on second trumpet, and you know, we had a lot of high unisons together. And if I'm going to play up on a high F sharp with anybody, he's one of those people I can do that with, and we're going to pretty much be on the money. And you can't do that with everybody. You get up that high on the trumpet, sometimes it's a cat fight, no matter how great the players are, you know.
Right.
It's hard to really match sounds up there because there's so much angst in the sound, and people's personality and their tones start showing up there.
Yeah.
Where Dan and I can go boom, man, and we can lock and load on a high F pretty darn good, you know, and it sounds, now you got us in stereo.
Yeah.
You know,
Cool.
so it's a kind of a cool thing. So I think some of those things are, or to answer your question, come into play.
Yeah, cool. You know, actually, I was going to ask you about this anyway, but you already brought it up about you know, the picture of you and Jerry and Gary, because I remember one of our early hangs. We spent a great deal of time talking about our mutual admiration of Jerry's work, particularly the stuff that he did with Giroux, you know, on the Giroux album and the High Crime album. And if you're listening to this or watching the video of this, and you're a trumpet player and you have not listened to either of those releases, stop this right now and listen to them, because that is some of the best horn arranging and some of the best playing you are ever going to hear. I mean, commercial section.
And those are the things, you know, that Jerry wrote that, you know, ended up getting a lot of fame, and there were there were hit songs. There's many other things, you know, that people aren't aware of, you know, stuff with the Brothers Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
And from way back when, and a lot of the things that he did for Earth, Wind, and Fire, of course, you know, and Maurice White loved Jerry Hay. When he heard Jerry Hay, it was all of a sudden like, oh my God, you know. So between Tom Tom 84 and Jerry, I mean, two of the greatest horn arrangers of all time for pop horns, in my opinion, you know.
Yeah.
Great, you know, obviously James Pankow in Chicago and Greg Adams, they wrote great stuff. But Jerry Hay redefined pop horn writing from this time with Seawind. Yeah. You listen to that stuff and hear how well that works. It's never in the way of the vocal. Yeah. He has a way of being able to put something complicated in without it being in the way. And there's an art, there's just definitely an art to that. But there's a Polino da Costa record. It's a great percussionist in town here, man. And I'm trying to think of the name of the tune. It's maybe it's called I Love Rio. I'm spacing on the tune. And man, and the horns on that, it's, you know, it's the same like Giroux. It's equally as badass. Yeah. But I bought that, and I used to buy anything that I saw their names on. Exactly. I bought because their names are on. So they help sell records for the artist. I mean, you know, Jerry is a big part of that because he influenced so many trumpet players. And that horn section, even though it changed its formation a little bit, the main nucleus originally was, you know, Jerry Hay and Gary Grant. Mm-hmm. And Larry or Kim Hutchcroft, right, was in there because you know, and then Larry Williams and Bill Rockenbach. So you'd see those names, and then Chuck Finley's name started coming into play, and Steve Medeo, who was another player I didn't know really well, but I did get to play with him once. I met him a couple of times, and he was a really kind of an interesting studio player because he did weird inflections and he had some tricks with the microphone. He'd go yap, and he'd go across the microphone with his bell and these kind of weird releases And Jerry used to say that he added this other element, another color to the palette that he would fit into the thing, even though it was odd, you know. And so he was, you know, I wish I got to play with him more. The one session I did with him, and he didn't have the chops he used to have when I played with him. You know, he passed away now. He'd had some health issues. But the one thing I remember sitting next to him was his time, like where he placed the notes. And that's where when I sit with Jerry and Gary Grant, they know where the beat is. Yeah. These cats have really great internal clocks. And not every trumpet player or every musician has that. You know, and Snooky Young had it. You can hear that Snooky Young had as good a time as any drummer. when he played. You know, he put the time with the drums.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't thinking about, oh, 1, 2, you know, he's
Yeah.
just playing. He had natural internal clock. And Jerry and Gary and Chuck, when you listen to them play anything, when you hear Chuck Finley playing a solo on anything, you can hear the time feel. When you hear Andy Martin playing a trombone solo, who's another, you know, great musician with incredible time. And when I sit next to him in a section, I feel that time. I can feel a group of 16th notes, how well quantized it is, as opposed to something going, you know, that something goes, right? A lot of players will go, and they might rush those 16ths a little bit. They might end up in the right place, but the flow of the thing, when you play with these people, Bill Rockenbach, all of them have that same incredible internal time feel. And I don't think, you know, I have that anywhere near as well as they do. I think I've gotten a lot better about it, you know, and I definitely think about time a lot more when I'm playing. I think about, let me internalize the beat instead of counting the beat. And I think you have to let go of counting the beat and start internalizing where the time is within the beat.
Yeah.
Because here's the beat. This is all in time. You have to stay within that framework. You can be tugging at the beat, or you can be pulling on the beat. And depending on, for instance, on swing music, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not getting too much off topic here, but when you think about swing music, and this is how I like to think about it, and I've talked to a couple of different drummers about this, and talked to Carl Saunders about this, who's a great, speaking of somebody with incredible time, you know, a trumpet player, and he plays drums as well, so we've talked about that. And when you're doing a shuffle, you know, if you're going ding, 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 that middle note, ding, 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 drummers put that in a different place, depending on tempo or depending on their thing. And some drummers tug on the beat and they go ding, 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 and they put it later. It's within that framework, but that middle note's over here instead of being right in the middle.
Right.
Or on the front of it, going ding, 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 because you hear the difference, right?
Right.
Well, when you're playing an eighth note line with that drummer, you have to place your line with that.
Right.
You know, to some degree. I mean, you don't go ding, 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 you know, but you have to kind of be aware of that, whether we're pulling at the beat or we're tugging at we're pulling at the beat or we're tugging the beat at the beat. When you're playing a faster tempo, I think you have to pull at the beat to keep from dragging.
Yeah.
So if you're going bop 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 ba da da da, there's no time to go do that. There's no time for that. Where if it's going bop bop ba do da do ba do that, there's time to tug at the beat because there's reaction time. You know, the beat's bigger. The tempo's slower, so you can do more with it. And that's why when somebody lays back, I don't like to use the term lay back. I like to say tugging at the beat, because laying back, and that's a pet peeve of mine when a band director tells their band, hey, you got to lay back. You got to lay back. No. Count Basie's band did not lay back. Count Basie's band played in time. They pulled back figures. They tugged at the beat, and they changed the rhythm of figures, as you know.
Yeah.
And then they go, right?
Yeah.
You know, on that all of me chart. Well, it's written, that's how it's written. That's not laying back. That's changing the rhythm. You're stretching, quantizing the beat. You're superimposing it, 3/4.
Right.
Is what they're doing. I mean, if you they didn't look at it technically. They just felt that I'm sure that all began one night where whoever was playing lead trumpet went and laid it back a little bit. Everybody went back, and the next time everybody kind of did that, and then it started getting expanded every single night. Stuff like that has evolved in the Big Fat Band, even.
Right.
And the figures have gotten to where we're doing like what Count Basie's band did, which is hard for a bunch of white boys, but but doing that. So I don't like to use the term layback. The time is time. And the tempo is the tempo, and laying back is the wrong term. I mean, it really is, and that should be struck from the vocabulary of band directors. Play in time. You can tug at the beat, like I said. Don't rush. Don't drag. Here it is. If you listen to any Count Basie record, they're right in the middle of the beat, man. They're on it. And Sonny Payne and Snooky were one of the best combinations of drummer and lead trumpet ever. And Wallace Davenport, who the unsung hero of the Count Basie band in many ways. He played second to Snooky, like on the Sinatra reprise records, but I mean, he played on Sinatra at the Sands, and people that haven't actually looked at the liner notes think that's Snooki a lot of times, and it's not. It's Wallace Davenport, but Snooki's influence on his playing
Is
undoubtedly there. And him and Sonny Payne have a lock. They sound good together, man, and they know where the beat is, you know, and it's really important. So anyway, these great players like Jerry and Gary and Chuck and you know, there's many, many others that I play with that have that internal clock. And that's just as important it's more important than your chops, your high chops. If you're a lead trumpet player, you can have the greatest high chops in the world, be the most accurate person ever. If you don't have a good time, nobody wants to hear it. It doesn't feel good. So it's only impressive as a circus, you know, trick.
Yeah, well, that and, you know, nailing the feet of a bear to the pedals of a unicycle. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
So, you know, it's so funny when you start talking about some of these things, you know, and your history, your understanding the history and the mechanics and stuff like that. But you know, if we kind of go back to some of the things you're talking about earlier about like being a natural, I experienced this a lot as when I was teaching martial arts. You know, I'd have a lot of students come in and they could learn super fast. You know, I could show them something once and they've got it, but then they don't make progress. Right? It's just like it's good immediately, but then it just never gets any better. And I remember a few years ago, you were dealing with some chop issues. And I remember having a conversation about you where you were kind of, you know, talking about you're trying to figure stuff out because you're dealing with this uncharted territory because you'd never had to deal with something like that before. So you're kind of at a loss for what to do to get through that. So and what's the biggest lesson that you learned from those trials?
Well, you know, what happened was I ended up developing a cyst on my upper lip, and it was caused from stress. Looking back, I know this now. I was in the middle of a divorce, and you know, it was very, very brutal divorce, and like, you know, divorces are never fun, you know. In case you think they're fun, they're really not. If you've never been through one, I don't recommend them, you know. You know, but sometimes they're necessary. You know, things just don't work or whatever, you know, or not right. You know, we all need to be happy, you know.
Yeah.
So and I'm happy. So, but I was going through a lot of stress, and I went through a very rapid weight loss, and I was living I was out of my house, and I was living at a friend's apartment. I lived with my friend Andy Martin for a little bit in his place. And then I moved in with a very good friend of mine, this cellist, Peggy Baldwin, and her husband. And they had a place in the mountains here in Big Bear as well. So they let me stay there. They had an extra room, and they were always gone. So I had this kind of a big apartment to myself. And it was very lonely, though. And I was freaking out because there's bills coming in. And I'm playing at this point, but I've lost weight. And so if you think about this, when you lose weight, well, you lose mass everywhere, kind of.
Right.
And so you lose your strength. You know, you lose, even if you're fat. I mean, when you're losing, sure, you're still losing muscle, as you know.
Yeah.
And so my playing, I felt like I was working so hard, and I just thought it's because I was stressed, and I was starting to push really hard, and my lip was hurting, and I'm going, oh man, I didn't put together that I'd lost the weight in my face.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I wasn't really practicing. I was playing, you know, and my lips are thinner now. And I caused damage. I damaged the muscle trying to do what I used to be able to do with a stronger muscle.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm pushing against this thing. So this thing came in, man, and it would not go away. And I would stop playing, it would go away. Then I'd play on it, it would aggravate it. And I was in the middle of a Broadway show that I needed the money for. It was Legally Blonde, which is a pretty demanding show. And I had to leave the show. And then I took some time off, and I had some guest artist things, and I would rest. So I couldn't practice. I'd have to let the thing go away. And then I'd go do a guest artist thing out of shape and beat my chops up, and this thing would flare up again. It got to the point where I couldn't play. I mean, where a doctor told me, you have to stop playing, you're going to do permanent damage.
Right.
And so I had to take 6 weeks off and let this thing go away. And at this point, I'm kind of coming around, and I'm putting some weight back on, and I'm getting healthy. And I kind of came back slowly and methodically, and I practiced with my good friend Larry Hall, who was another, you know, hero of mine and one of my dearest friends to this day. Larry's now retired. Tinnitus kind of took him out of the game, unfortunately, hearing issues. So, great guy and great player, and we practiced together quite a bit. when I was coming back. And he knows I want it back right now. So he'd take my mouthpiece because we're taking a break, and we go
Yeah.
get coffee or whatever, have a glass of wine. Then we come back and he was making me play this Clark study as soft as I could play, very slowly going, just soft, as whisper soft as we could play.
Hmm.
And we'd go through some different things and some long tones, and we'd go through even some of it, the Bill Adam routine, but softly, because we're trying to get this resonating area here, our reed, I like to call this our reed, like an oboe reed,
Right.
trying to get those reeds supple again so it's a good reed.
Yeah.
And if it hasn't been used for a while, if it's a dried out old funky reed, doesn't matter how great of an oboe player you are, you put that crappy reed in, you're going to sound bad. You're going to have issues playing. And so we kind of, we went at it very slowly. And then we were going into a show in, several weeks that we were going to be playing together. So I was grooming myself so I could play that show. So it was basically about 9 weeks before I worked.
Hmm.
And then we went into the show, and I forget, we were doing maybe How the Grinch Stole Christmas, I think. And I got to where I was, I'm playing again. I'm getting some high Fs and some Gs out and doing pretty good, and we did this show. And I split the book with Larry. Said, you play the piccolo trumpet stuff. Let me play what I can play. And as we go, I'll take some stuff out of your book. And I had the contractor split the money. I go, hey, Larry and I split the first trumpet money with us, so we both made the same money. And then as we went, I took some things back. But at the end, we were about, we'd split it up. I took a few things back. But I was roaring pretty good. By the end of the run, I was kind of back for the most part. And I had some, not that I didn't have some issues after that, but that's how I came back. So I learned a lot from that, from the methodical way to get back into this, with some time off. And because I didn't really know how to do it. One time I took a vacation many years ago, and I took 5 days off. And I figured that'd be okay. And I freaked out when I got back
Yeah.
because it didn't feel as good. And it only took me a couple of days to really get back,
Yeah.
maybe three days, but I panicked. And so I did learn a little bit from that time too, not to panic. Like it's going to come back, So panic does set in though, with trumpet players because it goes away so quickly,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and I think look, it's not just trumpet players. I think we all deal with that. As we're facing the unknown, we get fearful, and the more fear we have, the more stress and anxiety, and the more counterproductive it becomes. But it's that mental game, and when we can understand that there's a lesson to be learned in adversity. I kind of look at it like, when you go through the fire will either consume you or it will burn away the impurities and it'll leave you with a more refined state. So I know for me, I've gone through my share, like, we all have, my share of hard times, health issues, relationship issues, financial issues, you name it, issues. And I've always kind of prided myself on the ability to take, to learn a lesson from it and say, okay, well, I can't change the fact that this did happen. All I can do is learn how to either prevent it from happening in the future or to give me some tools to work with. So, if you think about in your life, what are some of those pivotal moments where you've just kind of had to break things down and reevaluate and restructure your approach to things?
Well, before this lip thing, I actually had one other issue when I was working at Disneyland. It was many, many years ago. And I have a chipped tooth that I learned to play on, and anybody who's read my bio, I tell the story about it, so.
You didn't have that filed to match Faddis?
Well, I did have a file. I did use a file. It's funny you should mention that. So anyway, I'm going to make this very quick so we don't get long on it. This tooth had an abscess in it, and the dentist said, well, I want to do a crown. And I'm going, no crown, because I knew how important the dental thing was. Mm-hmm. So I went to another friend of mine, this drummer, Matt Johnson, said, I have a friend that's a cosmetic dentist. You should go get him, get a second opinion. So I went in there, and he said, no, I can save that tooth. We can do some bonding material. I can make it bulletproof and make it as strong as possible. But I'm going to have to, so he had to get the decay out of the tooth first. And then he bonded it up, and he goes, well, let's just start with the whole tooth, why not? And I couldn't play, and then he would grind a little bit off, and then all of a sudden air was going through again. Then he would take a little bit more off, And it got better and better, and my range was going up. By the time we were done, man, we had trumpet players lined up around the block to get in the chair, you know. So
Yeah.
So anyway, but so he took some of this off, and then he left it because I was playing. I played to the top of my range, and the chip wasn't as big, so it looked a little nicer, you know. Whatever, you know. I don't really give a crap about any of that, but it looked a little nice. So we left it at that, and I go, oh, good, man, we saved the tooth. I didn't have to have a crown. Well, that night I played a gig with Tom Kubis's band. This is many years ago too, and George Graham was still live playing. Oh, no, matter of fact, George wasn't at this gig. That's right. I played lead trumpet that night, and I played one of his features. He had the feature on a Clear Day that Tom did for him, and I played it, and it felt a little bit different. But I played a double high C on the end. I got it, you know.
Yeah.
And it felt a little different, you know, and a little maybe not as big, but you know, they're not always a home run. Let's face it. You know,
Yeah.
we all have better perform. So, but I said, oh, I'll be okay with this. And as the days went on, my chops started going south, where I started leaking on one side. And what was happening is this thing, whether the shape of it was a little different now, maybe it's a little longer. Now I'm manipulating. And my muscle memory is trying to gravitate around what used to be, which is different now.
Right.
And so it started freaking out, and it got to the point where I could barely hit a high C. I could always play in the staff, always seemed okay. And I go, pop, 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 I go, pop, pop, and I go, and this would give out. And I was holding my corners. I couldn't keep the air going through the aperture without coming out the sides. So I start freaking out. And I go back to him, and he takes a little bit more off, and we play nothing. I got a file. I'm in the Disneyland band, and all of a sudden I started just sitting on the fourth trumpet book, you know, because of where I could play. And I was really frustrated. I threw a trumpet during this practicing. I threw a trumpet into the wall, my Schilke X3, and it stuck into the drywall. The bell stuck, and it hung there. And I was going, I should just put a frame around that and leave it there and call it a fucking day, you know. So it was really frustrating.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I went back to the original dentist because I wanted to get the mold of my teeth, which we did have.
Right.
And I wanted to go to this other dentist and go, make this as close to this as you can make it. So we had to do some measurements. And so anyway, the sad part of this, I go to that other dentist to get my composite mold. And the dental assistant went to get them, and she walked over, she dropped it.
Oh.
She dropped it. Both of them, the tops and the bottom. The bottom stayed perfectly intact. Top shattered, just plaster Parish. No,
Yeah,
this is a long time ago. They have some more heavy duty stuff. Now they have it all on the computer.
Exactly.
So now it's, you know, it's all high tech, and they can, like a CNC machine, they can duplicate anything, you know. So now I don't have a mold. So I go back to this. So what I did was found some pictures of me. I blew them up for reference so he could look at that. And then we started experimenting around with the thickness. And I just got it to a place that was close, and I left it there. And then I started studying with this trumpet player, Boyd Hood. I said, I'm going to take some lessons, who was in the LA Philharmonic for many years. He's retired now.
Right.
And one thing he said to me that always stuck, he's had me start doing the stamp routine and doing some buzzing, which I'd never really done or I've never been very good at. But he told me, I kept going, Boyd, it feels, it doesn't he? He said, quit worrying about how it feels. He goes, it's different. You're looking for something that doesn't exist anymore. Follow the sound. Please just go through this, what I tell you to do. Play with a good sound. Put the mouthpiece up and blow. You know, don't manipulate. So I started doing that. So I'd go in the practice room, and I'm still playing. You know, I'm at Disneyland, kind of sucking, and you know, as far as I'm concerned. And but I'd go into the hallway and I'd practice all these scales, be going these little exercises he gave me, and all the stamp things. And I would guess I went up higher. All of a sudden, I started going and I'd be a high C, and it was coming out again. I go and I go, oh wait, man, it didn't leak. All of a sudden, you know, and then I go half step up to D now. And it's not leaking, and I kept doing these things over and over and over. The next thing I know, I'm going and I got an F again, and my officers gripped. And in about 2 weeks, I was back, and I was stronger.
Yeah.
I had, my traps were stronger, and I'd learned something through all this.
Yeah.
So when I went into this stuff with my chops, even though I knew it was a drag, I went back to that. I go, okay, I know this will be okay because I can't worry about what it feels like. And so I went back to what Boyd showed me as well when I was, part of this was coming back soft and forgetting about that and just kind of following the sound. So that following the sound that comes from Bill Adam, which he says, and many teachers say that, is very true. I mean, sometimes we have to think about the physical things that are happening and the technical things, but that will fix a lot of things. 90% of the time I say that will fix things that are wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you see that happen to a lot of people where our bodies are constantly changing. So whether it's like you're talking about with weight loss or, weight gain, you're in better shape, whatever it is, or just a natural decline that occurs, your body is not going to function at 62 or 52 or 42 the way it does at 22.
Right.
And that's the blessing and the curse of ingraining things, or, what we call muscle memory, is that that's the way that we did it. And we think that that's going to be the way that we always do it. But if we don't understand that if one aspect changes, then everything kind of has to adjust in order to filter that. But the one thing that can't change or shouldn't change is up here. If that stays consistent, if your intention stays consistent, then your body will find a way to match your intention.
That's very well put, man, because that life is a moving target. And if we don't follow that target, something's, when something's wrong, things have to be changing constantly. We're always in flux, as you know. So keeping your head in the game in the right place is half of it, and realizing there's a way to do this. And maybe it's another way. We have to think outside the box with everything, man. I don't disregard anybody's information that I see about Trumpet playing online, even if it seems ridiculous. And, there's a lot of haters, I try not to get involved on the internet with being too negative. But once in a while, I might be alcohol induced. I might have to chime in and call somebody out because they're just spewing bad information, or being mean or whatever, But I look at things that you can learn a lot from anything. Yeah. You can learn a lot by listening to somebody saying, hey, I just learned something. I'm never going to do that. That's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Physics tells me and science tells me, and all I've ever learned tells me I'm wrong. But I'm going to look at it and I'm going to say, well, why is it wrong?
Yeah.
Why is that the wrong thing to be teaching? And I can't cite an example. I probably could, but I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
There's trumpet players especially, and I don't know what it is. We're kind of a weird breed, man, that we have huge egos and we have to have confidence to do what we do. The drummer has to have confidence to do it. Well, anybody but it really should be across the board when you play any instrument. If you're out front, it takes confidence. Ego is within yourself. Confidence goes outward. It shows you, hey, I'm confident. Your listener can hear confidence. Like, oh man, ego they can hear as well.
Yeah.
When you're a circus act and you're just overplaying everything.
Yeah.
It's about showing off. It's like Bobby Shue has a great line. You can play to impress or to move. And sometimes both of those things happen at once.
Right.
I'm more impressed with listening to Till Browner play than I am with somebody, playing a million notes and hitting, a triple high C. Yeah. And even though that's impressive too, and I love all that, of course, because I'm a part lughead too, it's in my DNA, as a trumpet player. But I'm more impressed with that because that's actually harder to do. Not physically harder. It's harder from the soul because your soul has to be in play.
Right.
And let's face it, any monkey can do a lot of stuff that we hear. And do it well. And I'm not taking anything away from it. It's an important piece of the picture. Mm-hmm. But John Faddis can do really high, amazing, fast, show-offy, great stuff. He can also play a ballad that will make you cry and never leave the staff. Yeah. That's the difference. Maynard Ferguson could do that too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, high note trumpet players or lead trumpet players, however we look at them, that could do that. And that's the big difference, that they knew they had that. It's part of their DNA as well. And it's part of the foundation of their playing, which made the stuff they play up high better.
Yeah.
because it drew me in more because I can hear the heart even in that, even if it's fast. There's still heart. There's confidence in it showing off, but it's the heart is still there. And I think that's a big part of it, man. And I try to keep that in my playing.
Yeah.
I try to keep some soul and quality of sound and beauty. And Maynard, one of the greatest things anybody ever told me was play like an opera singer.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me, man. And when he was young, especially, you could hear that.
Yeah.
And the way he played a ballad. You know, as he got
Yeah.
older, you know, his playing changed. He became a caricature of what he once was.
Yeah.
As he, you know, things changed as he got. But Maynard, he died with all his chops. It's just kind of funny that he left with all the physical ability, you know, and he was not a picture perfect textbook embouchure. Let's face it, you know, if you looked at that embouchure in a book, that would be like, do not do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how do you argue with that? You
Yeah.
know, so once again, looking at something that looks wrong, but what's right about that? And let me get that.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's what I learned from him, watching him play, watching him do weird things like stick his tongue between his lips before he played to open his aperture up real big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, well, that every book in the world would say that's wrong to do. But
Yeah.
you listen to how loud and how big those notes were. It comes from, it's like that reed, like on a saxophone. Like if you wanted a tenor sax setup for playing like rock music or whatever, you would have a certain mouthpiece and a certain reed, a hardness of reed. I don't know much about woodwind playing, but that space would be bigger because it's easier to play loud.
Yeah.
So this is our volume control.
Yeah.
So and understanding how that works, that was a big lesson for me. And now we're learning that from Maynard didn't mean I could play soft or do it. I learned that much later, how to control that and how to make those things and how to take what I learned from Maynard that might be textbook wrong and then take what I know, what physics and science tells me, and what many other great trumpet players have showed me, and mold those things together and then kind of be able to do both of those things at a convincing level.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I can't remember where I heard it, but it was Maynard talking about how to improve your upper register. And he said to play a ballad and, you know, to play it and then play it up a third and then play it up a third and play up a third, but always trying to go for that lyrical approach to playing as opposed to, okay, we'll just play arpeggios or just play, you know, the
That's
highest
a
note you can play.
great way to approach something like that. I've always thought that. And I didn't know that. Maynard never said that to me, but he probably said that at some master classes. And that's really a great point because Faddis talks about that a little bit. Even, you know, I was hanging with him at the NAMM show once and I heard him playing you know, the Charlie A number one, and then he played it up a third, and was playing some of it up a half seven, playing in different keys, and was talking about being able to play it and making it sound just the same, and he can do that. I mean, John Faddis, you know, I've only really played with him, you know, in an ensemble once, and that was we were doing this Gillespie Piano Suite in Los Angeles for a week, and he was a soloist, him and Tom Scott, and originally it was done by Dizzy Gillespie and Paquita de Rivera, and Lalo Schifrin wrote the piece. It's like a big band with no saxophones. It was four French horns. And now I can't say that. I have too many saxophone player friends, but there was four French horns in the front row, so it was all brass, and Faddis was out front, and so I watched him play 2 sets a night for 5 nights. And he played some of the same stuff, you know, you know, it's a certain way to play this thing, but it always varied a little bit every night. And some of the ensemble parts, there was one little march thing in there, this like weird 12/8 thing, and I don't remember what it was exactly. But every once in a while, he would play the lead part up an octave, and it went up to double E flat. It was like, you know, with some weird thing.
Yeah.
And he played it, and he made it sound like it was in the register we were in. It was perfect.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard anything like it. And I was already a fan of John Faddis's, but I became a big time fan of his after hearing that and after hearing all the things that he did that night. The plunger work. You know, you're talking about being able to do all these things really well. Everybody thinks about John Faddis as a high note trumpet player.
Yeah.
Because he can play in the upper register, and he does.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, that's one tool in his tool belt. He played that plunger stuff awesome.
Yeah.
And can make the trumpet talk. And I was more impressed with that. You know, I was like, man, everything this guy can do, man. It's just like, and the efficiency, you know, the physical part of it, watching how easy he can do it, coming back to efficiency. You can't do that and not be efficient. You
Yeah.
can't play the way he plays and not be efficient. I could never play that lick the way he played that. He's playing half as easy as I am.
Yeah.
You know, he's using 50% less work. I'm playing a lot easier than I used to, and that's a goal for me. But man, that is like nothing for him. I know he hurts inside and it doesn't show, but I've always been impressed with the ease of playing, but it makes the music sound better.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's when it's too hard, when there's stress and anxiety and things like that. I mean, that's definitely a mental thing, and that creeps into the physicality. I mean, when you're stressed, your body can't function optimally. So to get the same results, you have to work twice as hard, which then is this downward spiral of destruction. So
yeah, and that applies to sports as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're if you're playing basketball, it's twice as much work to throw that ball into the basket. If the ball feels like it's twice as heavy, well, you're working twice as hard to make the same result, and you can't make the same result for as long anyway. Maybe you're pretty good at it for a minute. I got this. You're not going to last as long.
Yeah. Well, even relationships. I mean, I love your wife. We're talking about the relationship woes you had.
You guys aren't fooling around or anything, are you?
Well,
next question.
Next question. No, I had such a great time hanging with you and Barb at that ITG. That was just like one of the highlights of my life, just hanging out with you guys. But I could see in that, and staying in touch with you over the years, there's an ease to a relationship. I mean, it's not saying that it doesn't take work to maintain a good relationship. It does, but when you have to force it, it doesn't work. So
it's interesting you say that, because from that ITG, for whatever reason, we all gravitated together. You and I, Mike Chikowitz, and Jeff Houghton from Yamaha, and my wife. Yeah. And there's a picture of us all crammed into a car going out to dinner. You guys were in the back seat and piled in this little car. And we hung and we drank wine and we had great food. And we went out to eat with Avi from Guard.
Yeah.
That's right. That night, we went to Arnie Morton's and we had this incredible dinner. And it was just funny. But that relationship, even though we'd met before, it kind of planted the seed to roots that grew as a friendship with all of you. Because it's funny, that night, because Jeff Houghton and I mean, we knew each other a little bit. Yeah. And we'd met before. We're very good friends, man. I call him, and the personal things that I call and tell you about my life that I wouldn't tell this everybody, I tell him. And Mike Chikowitz, I talked to him yesterday. We've remained great friends since then. And you and I have kept in touch and remained friends. And so that's not true with everybody I meet, and it doesn't mean I don't want to be friends with them, but for whatever reason, because of the situation, the connection, and we had such a good, hey, let's hang tomorrow night. Yeah. And that's how friendships are made, and even though we don't see each other all the time, Frank Green and I, I met him when I was on Maynard's band and he was on Woody's band, and we just had a connection. We met in front of the Edison Hotel in New York City and talked and kept in touch ever since then. Yeah. And now he's one of my dearest friends.
Yeah. And like I said, that's really in many ways what it's inspired this concept, because not everybody gets a chance to hang, and especially now, with all of this COVID stuff going on, that's the one thing that I miss the most is just being able to hang with people and just, talk.
Yeah. It's hard.
But we're going to wrap up with something that I call the speed studies. I don't know if you ever did the Nagel speed studies.
I did a little bit, but it was too hard. So I just,
exactly.
I don't need this.
So, I mean, those are the finger busters, and you just have no idea where it's going. And that's kind of the way this is. The rapid fire round is going to throw some questions out to you. Quickest answers you can give me. Okay. You don't know where it's going to end up. So let's just go ahead and start with this one. Your biggest influence on your life that is not a trumpet player.
My father.
Good. Okay. Your favorite book?
It's your book.
Thank you, Wayne.
I feel stupid because I was never a big reader, even though I read a few things, so having a favorite book, I'm just starting to dive into Michelle Obama's book right now. And I'm in the first quarter of it, and I'm like fascinated with it, and I'm enthralled with her life all of a sudden. So, but yeah, I just got your book, and I have to say, just because I'm learning about meditation a little bit through the little bit that I've read the first part of your book, and I'm actually doing that for the first time in my life, and
Awesome.
and and right now I kind of need it. I have some stuff going on in my life that's not good necessarily that I don't think I'll share here, but everything will be just fine. But it's helping me cope with those
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
so that's why I say it's my favorite book.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad that I can be of assistance in some small way. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. And it's also my favorite because of that.
Yeah. Okay. If you weren't a trumpet player, what would you want to do?
I would probably be a machinist because that's what I did when I was young. And my father was a machinist, and I had some skills there. Maybe I'd be making mouthpieces or something like that. Who knows? But I think I'd be in some kind of construction or something mechanically motivated that way.
Okay. What's your favorite drink?
It's the drink that I've just invented, and it's called the Wayne Drop, and it's a simple syrup muddled with mint, Grey Goose vodka, bubbly water that I make myself, my soda stream with fresh squeezed lemon from my garden. And the mint is from my garden as well, and make a very lemony concoction like that. You put ice in, you put your shot of vodka in, you pour this lemony concoction in, and you top it with pomegranate juice and a lemon wedge. And it's
Oh.
it's a mojito kind of vibe, very refreshing drink. And we just made up a drink one night, so my wife calls it the Wayne Drop. So I do those a lot, and it's really quite good. I mean, I have to say,
I might have to try that later on today.
yeah, it's not a bad thing.
All right, cool. All right.
Tequila's my favorite, as far as hard liquors. I don't drink scotch, not that I don't, but I like tequila. And Dos Artes is my favorite new tequila. So I don't know if you know about that, but you should
I
check
don't
it out.
know. I will check them out for sure. Thanks
I will
for
show
the,
it to you. Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks for the heads. No, please don't show it to me. You could have a dinner party and invite any three living people. Who would they be?
It'd be my mother and my father, and I have to have it has to be more people. And it have to be my three siblings that have passed away. Four siblings that have passed away, excuse me. I've lost two brothers. I've lost all three of my brothers and my one of my sisters. So there's only two of the six of us left. So you have to make that a bigger party.
Okay, bigger party just for you, Wayne. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Lacquer plated or raw?
Lacquer.
Okay. I was talking about your date. Uh, what's your favorite quote?
Oh my goodness. I think it's probably 80% physically, 100% musically.
Okay, cool. What's your biggest fear?
Fear of the unknown.
Well, you're not alone with that one. Okay, you could have only one superpower. What would it be?
To get Donald Trump out of office. I'm sorry, I had to go there.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't want to be political. No, I've had one superpower to be able to heal the sick.
That's a good one. Okay, now we're gonna go directly back into the land of trumpet. What aspect of trumpet playing do you think is the most underrated?
Style,
Okay.
because we just concentrate so much on the range and the physical thing,
What do you think is the most overrated?
range.
Range. Okay. And what advice would you give your younger self about music?
I would say learn to play the piano so you understand the big picture of music instead of being a one note. But we play one note at a time. So we're going down one lane of the highway. If you can see the whole highway, you can react to a lot of different things differently. So I wish I would have done that when I was young.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What advice would you give your younger self about life?
I would have worked harder. I didn't work as hard as I should have when I was young. And I'm not just talking about trumpet. I'm talking about many things. I didn't study as hard as I should have in school. As I got older, you realize the catch up you have to do the things we need to do in life. And so it would definitely probably be more on the educational thing about focusing on really taking care of business. And I look at young people now that do that, like young high school players, and they're good students, and they go off to college, and they're good college students, and they practice I wish I would have taken that route. I almost wish I wouldn't have had the physical ability, because it would have made me work harder.
All right. Well, cool. Well, Wayne, thanks so much for spending time with me today. And I'm sure that there's lots of impact in here for a lot of people that are going to listen to this, a lot of young trumpet players, a lot of old trumpet players. So you've always been one of my favorite people, not just my favorite players. And I just really love being able to spend a little time with you. And I'm looking forward to spending more time in the real world after.
Yeah, man, I know. We'll have to we'll have to reunite at the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic or one of these events, down the road, and you and I and Chickowitz and Jeff Houghton and my wife and us all get together and go have a nice dinner and celebrate, what's good in life,
You got that, and any time that you get out here to the East Coast, you always give me a shout, and I'll be there. So anyway, Wayne, once again, thank you very much, my brother. And if people want to find out what's going on in your life, what's the best way to keep track of you?
Well, you can go to my website, waynebergeron.com, and you can see what I'm doing. You can see what I'm currently not doing, because everything's been canceled. All my gigs went away in one day. But I'm home. I work from home, and I have a recording studio here, and so I am keeping busy, and I am practicing, and I am teaching online a little bit and doing master classes. And Jose, thanks for having me. It's been really fun doing this, and this is fun because it's not just a trumpet. We talked a lot about trumpet, but it's not just about the technical aspect. I like talking about the spiritual part of all this, and I've learned a lot from you as well. So thank you for all the kind words, and thanks for being my friend, and I'm glad I met you that day way back when, and you're a big part of my life. So thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, brother, and best wishes in all things in your business, your music, and your life. And please give Barb a big hug and kiss for me. And
I will do that.
We will catch up with you soon. So everybody, thanks for spending time with us today, and catch us on the next episode. So peace and slide grease. We are out. Hey, thank you so much for hanging with us today. This podcast is all about creating connection through our mutual love for the trumpet life. I hope that you learned a few things about today's guest and had some laughs along the way. Don't forget to give us a review. We love those 5-star ratings. And please share this podcast with your friends. We want to see our hang grow for show. Have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest? Hit me up at thetrumpetgurus@gmail.com. Our opening theme was written and performed by Lexi Signor, and all other music comes courtesy of The Greatest Funeral Ever. So in the words of W.C. Handy, life is like a trumpet. If you don't put anything into it, you don't get anything out. So go out there and let your trumpet sound. And I'll see you at the next hang.